After being reborn, my entire family could hear my thoughts. Should I tell Mom her beloved adopted daughter is actually Dad's illegitimate child? She held Amber's hand, then suddenly trembled. Should I tell my second brother that Dad deliberately ruined his future? His phone suddenly overheated in his hand. Would my oldest brother be crushed to know Dad hired someone to crash into him, crippling his legs? I saw smoke practically rising from his head. It was too much. If they knew Dad had done all of this just to marry his childhood sweetheart, would our family fall apart? Amber kept pretending to be innocent, acting sweet in front of my oldest brother. Dad, I don't want this. How could I take Big Brother Char's big brother? I'd never do that. She reached out to touch his arm, trying to act cute, but the moment she did, he shoved her to the ground. The entire room fell silent. Even Amber was too shocked to cry.
Dad jumped up first.
Nathan, what are you doing? How could you treat Amber like that? Have you lost your mind? Nathan laughed coldly, glaring at him like he could tear him apart. In my previous life, after I died, my spirit followed Dad and learned the truth. I wanted to expose him, but Nathan had no proof. People would just think we were bullying poor Amber. It wasn't worth it. But then Nathan said, "Mrs. Wilson, please pull up the living room security footage." Amber froze.
She looked to Dad, panicked.
He looked uneasy. "Why do you need the footage?" Dad asked. Nathan ignored him. Dad shouted, "Don't touch that footage. This is the White family home." Then Mom spoke, her voice calm but deadly. "Mrs. Wilson, get the footage." "Yes, ma'am." Realizing there was no way out, Amber jumped up. "If Big Brother doesn't want me, if the whole family doesn't, then I'll leave." "No one's going anywhere until my sister's name is cleared," Nathan said firmly. Despite his disability, he carried himself with the dignity Mom had instilled in him. He was still her heir. Amber stayed silent. Dad tried to interrupt again, but fell quiet when the footage played. There, clear as day, Amber stepped on her own dress and pretended to fall. A setup. The room turned against her in seconds. "Get her out of here," Mom said coldly. "I never want to see her again." Amber panicked. "No, please. I'll never do it again. Please give me one more chance." Mom didn't flinch. Dad looked at Amber, realizing she was now worthless to him. "I misjudged you," he said. "I'll send her away right now." He turned to Mom. "I didn't know she could lie like that. I'll handle it. Don't be angry." Mom gave a dry laugh. Watching Dad now was like watching a clown perform. Amber was dragged away. Dad loved his childhood sweetheart and his illegitimate daughter, but he loved money more. He wouldn't protect Amber anymore. With her gone, Dad's next move was damage control. In front of the guests, he apologized. "I didn't know she was like that. I was fooled, too. Zoe, I'm so sorry. I'll never adopt anyone again. You're my only daughter." I wanted to gag. Mom cut in. "Words aren't enough. You need to compensate Zoe properly." "Anything she wants," Dad said, smiling. "Anything?" I asked sweetly. "Of course. When have I ever broken a promise?" I replied. "I want your shares in the Song Corporation." His face fell. "You're only 14. Shares aren't useful to you. But you were going to give them to Amber. Am I less important?" I asked, looking hurt. Then added casually, "Is Amber your real daughter or something?" Dad paused. "Of course not. You're my only daughter. Then why offer her shares but not me?" "They were for your mother's support at the company." "No need," Mom interrupted. "Nathan has agreed to join the company." Dad looked stunned.
"He has."
Nathan nodded. "I'm the eldest. I'll take responsibility." Dad clenched his teeth, but had no argument left. I pressed. "So, will you give me the shares now?" With all the guests watching, he had no choice but to agree. He gritted his teeth and nodded. Then I smiled and said, "Actually, I want all your shares." Dad gasped. "I was only giving Amber 10%. Shouldn't I matter more than Amber?" I asked again, eyes wide with innocence. Amber lay on the floor, stunned and silent. Even her usual crocodile tears didn't come. Dad was the first to react. "Nathan, what are you doing? How could you treat Amber like that?" Have you lost your mind? My oldest brother let out a cold laugh, a sound that seemed to echo through the room like ice cracking. He looked at Dad like he was staring at a stranger or an enemy. And maybe he was. In my past life, after my death, I had followed Dad's every move. I had watched him lie, manipulate, and twist the truth so skillfully that no one suspected a thing. But now, the truth was leaking through the cracks. Nathan's voice cut through the tension. Mrs. Wilson, pull up the security footage from the living room. Amber flinched. Dad's face palled. He jumped in desperate. Why do we need that? She already said it was a misunderstanding. Nathan didn't even glance at him. He was completely focused. Mom's voice followed low and sharp. Mrs. Wilson, get the footage. Yes, ma'am. Amber scrambled to her feet. If Big Brother doesn't want me, if the whole family hates me, I'll just leave. No one leaves until my sister's name is cleared, Nathan said firmly. Though still in a wheelchair, Nathan's presence filled the room. He was Mom's chosen heir after all. The accident had shaken him, but it hadn't broken him. Amber went silent. Dad looked between Mom and Nathan, clearly calculating. But when the footage played, there was no room left for interpretation. It showed Amber clearly stepping on her own dress, flinging herself to the ground, and glancing around before pretending to cry. A heavy silence fell. Then Mom spoke. Get her out. I never want to see her again. Amber panicked. No, please. I didn't mean it. I was just scared. I'll never do it again. She turned to Dad. Daddy, help me, please. But Dad's eyes had already turned cold. I misjudged you. I had no idea you were capable of this. I'll send you away immediately. He turned to Mom, trying to recover some dignity. I didn't know truly. I'll handle this.
Don't be angry.
Mom gave a small, mocking laugh, the kind that said she saw straight through him. Dad grabbed Amber's arm and dragged her out. But we all knew the truth. He didn't cut ties because of justice or morality. He cut ties because Amber had become a liability. She was no longer useful. After the chaos, Dad stood before the rest of the family and guests, putting on a show of remorse. I was deceived, too. I had no idea Amber would do something like this. Zoe, I'm so sorry. You were hurt the most. It's all my fault. Please, let me make it up to you. Mom folded her arms. Words are easy. Let's see real compensation. Dad turned to me. Zoe, anything you want, I'll give it to you. I smiled sweetly. Really? Anything? Of course, Dad said confidently, assuming I'd ask for something small. I want your shares in Song Corporation, I said. The room went still. Dad's face darkened. Zoe, you're only 14. Shares aren't. But Dad, I interrupted, you were planning to give shares to Amber, weren't you? Am I not as important as her? Or is it because she's your real daughter? Panic flashed across his face. Don't talk nonsense. You're my only daughter. Then give me the shares. He tried to deflect. They were just to help your mother at the company. Mom shut that down instantly. No need. Nathan will be joining the company. Dad blinked. Nathan, but I'm the eldest son, Nathan said calmly. I'll take responsibility for our family. Dad was cornered and he knew it. Refusing now would humiliate him in front of everyone. So, through gritted teeth, he agreed. Fine, 10%. I tilted my head, but you just said anything. Why not all of them? He tried to keep his composure. 10% is what I offered Amber. Then shouldn't I get more than her? The weight of the stairs, the pressure of appearances, and the growing cracks in his image were suffocating him, and it was only the beginning. Dad's jaw clenched so tight, I thought his teeth might shatter. The guests looked on in tense silence, some clearly enjoying the spectacle. He had always prided himself on being the calm, composed patriarch. Now he was visibly cornered by a 14-year-old. Fine, he spat. I'll transfer 15%. That's more than Amber ever got. I widened my eyes, feigning innocence. Really, Dad? I knew you loved me the most. He forced a stiff smile, pretending he wasn't dying inside. Of course, Zoe. You're my daughter. The papers were signed that night. Dad's hand trembled as he passed the documents over, and I made sure to hold my pen with a little flourish when I signed. The transfer was witnessed by the entire family and several guests. There was no going back now. Nathan wheeled beside me afterward, his expression unreadable. "You've changed," he said quietly. I glanced at him. "So have you." A pause. Then good. Mom didn't say much, but the look she gave me, that subtle nod, the faintest smile, was the approval I'd been chasing in my past life. But this time, I wasn't chasing anyone. I was leading. Later that evening, after the guests had left and the house fell into silence, I stood alone by the window in the study. The night breeze cooled my face. This was the very room where, in my past life, Dad had whispered lies into Mom's ears, painting Amber as a poor, misunderstood girl. He had destroyed us all with secrets, but not this time. Mrs. Wilson knocked gently and stepped in. "Miss Zoe, your mother is asking if you'd like to have some tea in the garden." I turned, smiling. "I'd love to." As I walked through the halls of the estate, something shifted inside me. The same corridors that once made me feel small now echoed with a different rhythm, mine. But as I stepped into the garden, I noticed someone lurking by the gate. A familiar figure in a hoodie, poorly disguised. Amber.
She wasn't gone.
Not yet. Her eyes locked on mine, filled with hatred and desperation. "You stole everything from me," she hissed, voice low but venomous. "I won't let you win." I didn't flinch. "Amber, you never had anything to begin with. You lived on borrowed time. That time is over." Before she could say another word, the guards approached. She backed off, disappearing into the night like the shadow she was. But I knew this wasn't the end of her. And Dad, he was already scheming, pretending to accept defeat while plotting behind closed doors. Let them try. This time, I wasn't the helpless daughter. I was the one rewriting the story. The next morning, the entire household seemed to be holding its breath. Dad was unusually quiet during breakfast, barely touching his food, while Mom calmly sipped her tea and reviewed some documents. Nathan joined us late, but when he did, he gave Dad a look sharp enough to cut steel. No one spoke of what happened the day before, but the silence said everything. Just when I thought we might get through the morning without drama, Dad cleared his throat. "I've been thinking," he began, voice carefully measured. "Now that Nathan is going to the company, perhaps Zoe should focus on her studies. The business world can be harsh. Shares aren't toys." He looked at me as if I were still the clueless, obedient daughter from my past life. I placed my fork down slowly.
"You're right, Dad.
But it's a good thing Nathan will be there. He can help manage the shares for now." Dad smiled thinly. "Of course, but we should have your name removed from the board just temporarily." Nathan didn't even let him finish. "She's a shareholder, Dad, not a child playing house. Don't embarrass yourself." That shut him up. After breakfast, I followed Mom into her study. She was looking over some old company ledgers when she glanced up at me. "You knew exactly what you were doing yesterday, didn't you?" I nodded slowly. She sighed, but there was something close to amusement in her expression.
"Good.
It's time someone else in this family learned to fight back." Then, as if nothing had happened, she handed me a folder. "These are the shares you now own. Study the company. Know what you're holding." I clutched the folder. For the first time, I wasn't just a daughter in name. I was a player on the board. Later that day, Nathan took me to the family's downtown office building, Song Corporation's headquarters. He introduced me to the upper management, each one clearly startled by my presence. "She's not just a figurehead," Nathan said firmly. "She's an owner. Treat her accordingly." One by one, they nodded. The office was sleek and cold. Glass, marble, and tension. But I felt nothing but power surging in my veins. We had just left the boardroom when Nathan's phone buzzed. He frowned. "Dad just submitted a request to call an emergency shareholders meeting," he muttered. "He wants to dispute the transfer." "Let him," I said calmly. "He's already lost the public image battle. Now he's trying to reclaim the throne through legal loopholes." Nathan smirked. "You've really changed." I stared out the window at the skyline. "No, I just finally remember who I am. But deep inside, I knew this was only the beginning. Dad wouldn't go down easily, and neither would I. The emergency shareholders meeting was set for Friday afternoon. Words spread fast. Investors whispered, board members exchanged nervous glances, and internal emails leaked like a broken faucet. The narrative Dad tried to spin was simple. Teenage daughter tricked him into signing away valuable shares under emotional stress. A pathetic excuse, but one that could gain traction if I didn't stay 10 steps ahead. Nathan and I prepared in silence. Mom offered legal support, but let us handle it. She wanted to see how far we were willing to go. And I think she already knew. Friday arrived, and the conference room was filled. Every executive, shareholder, and silent partner had shown up, eager to see how the drama would unfold. Dad entered wearing his favorite Navy suit, the same one he wore to fire loyal employees and cut bonuses. But this time, the mask didn't fit as well. There was desperation in his eyes. He took center stage and began with a performance worthy of an award. I love my family more than anything, but I was emotionally manipulated, blindsided by a situation I wasn't fully aware of. A child shouldn't hold this kind of responsibility. The company's future is at stake. I stood when he finished.
Calm, poised.
My voice didn't shake. I agree. The future is at stake. Which is why it's dangerous to keep power in the hands of someone who has consistently placed personal affairs above corporate ethics. Murmurs filled the room. I turned to the projector. This is a list of backdoor deals approved by Mr. Song over the past 5 years. Slide after slide showed contracts with inflated vendor prices, undocumented transfers, and shady consultant payments. Many of these trace back to an offshore account under the name Amberly. Dead silence. Dad's face drained of color. That's fabricated. Those are old records. No, Nathan interrupted. They're not. I compiled them myself with help from the compliance team, and every transaction was made under your direct authorization. Mom, seated quietly in the back, crossed her legs and gave the slightest nod of approval. I delivered the final blow. If this board votes to revoke my shares, they'll also be voting to ignore financial fraud, nepotism, and potential criminal liability. Is that the direction you want this company to go? Nobody answered, but I didn't need them to. The board voted. My shares remained untouched. Dad's position as chairman suspended pending investigation. He didn't speak to me as he left. He didn't look at Nathan. He didn't even say goodbye to Mom. But I knew exactly what he was thinking. He still believed he could win. Let him believe it. Let him plan his next move because I wasn't done yet. And I hadn't even started fighting dirty. The boardroom showdown marked a turning point, not just for me, but for everyone. News of the suspension spread fast. Finance blogs, corporate gossip pages, and even national outlets started whispering about a power shift in the Song dynasty. Headlines ran with stories of the teen shareholder who exposed her own father's embezzlement. I didn't ask for fame, but it found me anyway. Meanwhile, Dad vanished from the house. He didn't just sulk, he disappeared entirely. No calls, no texts. Even his office was cleared out. For a while, the silence was more unsettling than his presence ever was. But I knew better. Quiet was never safety. It was strategy. Nathan remained by my side, sharper than ever. At the company, he quickly gained respect, not because of his last name, but because of his relentless work ethic. He didn't want to lead for glory. He wanted to fix what Dad had broken. One evening, while reviewing documents, Nathan looked up. Did you ever wonder why he hated you being close to Mom? I paused. I thought it was just control. He shook his head. No, it was fear. He knew you were like her, and she was the only one who ever saw straight through him. It made sense. Mom had always been composed, unshakable. She'd let Dad play his games until it threatened her children. That's when her claws came out. But it was what Nathan said next that shifted everything.
There's a trust fund, he said.
Grandfather set it up. It's in your name, but it's never been touched. I blinked. What? Dad kept it hidden. Probably wanted to claim it himself after your 18th birthday. We found it buried under layers of legal shells locked in a private bank account overseas. The amount enough to buy a controlling interest in Song Corporation, and it was mine. I stared at the account details, hands trembling. This wasn't revenge. This was retribution. Cold, calculated, and fully legal.
You don't have to use it now, Nathan said.
But if you do, he'll never recover. I closed the laptop slowly. Let him make his move first because I wanted Dad to show his true face just one more time. I wanted him to try and take it all back so I could burn him with his own ambition. It didn't take long. Just as Nathan predicted, Dad resurfaced. He didn't crawl back. He came in with a new mask as if nothing had happened. Freshly shaved, a new suit, a rehearsed smile, and a press conference. My daughter Zoe and I have resolved our little misunderstanding, he said smoothly to the cameras. Family is everything to me, and I'm proud of the brilliant young woman she's becoming. I fully support her position at Song Corporation. A lie so polished it almost sparkled. I watched the broadcast from the living room, arms crossed, expression blank. Mom didn't react. Nathan, beside me, scoffed. He's laying the groundwork, he muttered. He wants the public to think you're spoiled, entitled, that you turned against him for power. I nodded. Let him try. Behind the scenes, he was worse. Dad began contacting board members in secret, trying to rally them for a vote of confidence in his leadership. He used pity. He used lies. He used bribes. But I was ready. While he plotted, I had a private meeting with one of the largest independent shareholders, a woman named Ms. Chen. She'd never liked Dad, but had stayed neutral. I handed her a file. It contained evidence of Dad's offshore accounts, falsified expenses, and personal favors billed to the company, all tied together in a neat audit-backed report. She read in silence, then looked up at me, eyes sharp. And what do you want, Miss Song? Your support, I replied. When the vote comes, I want you to call for a full investigation, public, transparent. I want the boardroom cleaned. She gave a slight smile. You're your mother's daughter. The meeting was set for the following Monday. Dad came dressed like it was a coronation until Miss Chen stood and requested the floor. I moved that we open a formal inquiry into financial misconduct involving Mr. Song. Gasps, murmurs, eyes darting between us. Dad laughed nervously. Is this a joke? On what grounds? The documents appeared like magic. Copies for everyone. It was over before it even began. The vote passed. An emergency audit was ordered. Dad's access to all company systems was revoked on the spot. He turned to me, eyes blazing. You think this is over, Zoe? You'll regret this. I leaned in, voice calm. I already did. In my last life, he flinched. For the first time, he saw it. I wasn't a child anymore. I was the storm he created and couldn't contain. The audit tore through the company like wildfire. Every corner of Dad's legacy was picked apart. Lavish trips labeled as business development. Designer gifts sent to Amber's mother from company funds, backdated approvals, shell companies, and ghost employees. What he'd built wasn't an empire. It was a house of cards stacked on greed and lies. And I was there for every single reveal. He tried to spin it. He claimed ignorance, blamed assistants, blamed clerical errors, even tried to drag Mom into it, saying she had signed off on many decisions. But Mom shut that down in a single boardroom statement. If I signed anything, it was under forged context or misrepresented documentation. Unlike you, I don't sign contracts in nightclubs. Mic drop. Nathan took over day-to-day operations as interim CEO. He was efficient, respected, and quietly ruthless when necessary. The staff responded with loyalty. The stock, once shaky, began to stabilize. Meanwhile, I went back to school during the day and reviewed corporate memos at night. My life was no longer split between childhood and adulthood. It was fused. I was growing into someone I never got to be the first time. But Dad wasn't done. One evening, a legal notice arrived. He was suing me for undue influence, claiming I had manipulated him into signing over the shares under emotional duress. Nathan wanted to crush the lawsuit publicly. Mom offered to counterclaim for damages and defamation, but I said no. Instead, I requested a private arbitration. Just me and Dad. No press, no board, just truth. He arrived looking smug. You afraid the truth might hurt, sweetheart? He smirked, sitting across from me. I opened a small file and slid it toward him. He glanced, froze. It was a letter from his former accountant, a man who'd fled the country years ago and had just been convinced to cooperate. The letter detailed Dad's embezzlement practices, complete with offshore ledgers and timestamps. I've already handed this to the audit committee, I said softly. But I thought you deserved to see it first. He looked pale, small for once, speechless. I'm not here to fight, I continued. I'm here to offer you something you've never given anyone in this family, a choice. He looked up. You resigned quietly. Surrender your remaining shares and walk away. No jail, no trial, no legacy completely destroyed. His hands trembled.
And if I don't, he asked.
I leaned back, steady as stone. Then I let justice take its course, and I'll be the one holding the torch for the first time.
He didn't speak.
He just signed and walked out of my life for good. The day Dad signed away his final shares, Song Corporation officially became something new, ours. Nathan was appointed permanent CEO. Mom returned as chair of the board. And me? At just 14, I became the second largest shareholder with a reputation the press couldn't stop talking about. The daughter who dismantled the dynasty. But beneath the headlines and handshakes, I knew something deeper had shifted. For the first time, we were no longer a family built on silence and sacrifice. We were rebuilding from truth. Still, not everything healed overnight. Amber tried to reach out. She sent a handwritten letter from whatever cheap apartment she'd ended up in, smeared with melodrama and apologies. She said she was sorry, that she was just a girl looking for love and didn't mean to hurt anyone. I burned the letter. Forgiveness wasn't required for closure. As for Dad, he vanished again, this time for real.
Rumors said he fled the country.
Others said he was hiding out in a mountain villa trying to contact old allies. But one thing was clear. He no longer had power. Not here. Not with us. One late evening, I found Mom sitting in the garden, staring out at the koi pond Grandpa had built years ago. Do you miss him?
I asked. She didn't look at me when she answered.
I miss the man I thought he was.
Not the one he became.
We sat in silence for a while.
Zoe, she said suddenly.
What do you want to do with the company? I blinked. You mean long term? She nodded. For once, I didn't hesitate. I want to make it clean, honest. No more bribes, no more cover-ups, no more dirty deals. I want Song Corporation to stand for something other than betrayal. Mom gave a small, rare smile. Then I'll help you. That night, I dreamed of the girl I used to be. Timid, overlooked, obedient. She looked at me with wide eyes like she barely recognized me. And I whispered to her, we made it back. This time we do it right. But deep down, I knew one thing remained. One last step. One final reckoning. And I was ready for it. The final reckoning didn't come with shouting or lawsuits. It came quietly on a spring morning exactly 1 year after I died in my previous life. I stood at my grandfather's old estate, the place where everything had begun and everything had once broken. It had been restored, not just the building but the spirit. The staff smiled differently now, lighter, freer. In the Great Hall, we hosted a charity gala, our first public event under the new Song leadership. The theme Legacy rewritten. Nathan stood beside me, tall and composed. Mom addressed the audience with elegance and fire, reminding everyone of the strength that blooms from truth. But when it was my turn to speak, the room fell silent. I stepped up to the podium, heart steady. No fear, no doubt. My name is Zoe Song, I began. And I used to believe that silence protected people. That obedience kept families together. That love meant sacrificing your voice. I looked out at the crowd. Every board member, every investor, every reporter who once published Dad's flattering headlines. I was wrong. Gasps rippled. But I kept going. I've learned that silence only protects those who harm. That obedience feeds corruption. And love, real love, never asks you to erase yourself. A pause.
A breath.
My father tried to bury the truth. I chose to resurrect it. The applause didn't come immediately. It came after a beat of stunned recognition, then rose like a wave. Not for me, not for spectacle, but for the return of something they thought our name had lost. Honor. After the event, I walked the garden paths alone. Amber was gone. Dad was a ghost in exile. The company was in new hands. But the best part, we weren't just surviving. We were healing. Later that night, Nathan joined me by the koi pond. He didn't say much. He didn't need to. We had rebuilt the house that once buried us, brick by brick, truth by truth. And as the moon lit the water and the wind carried the scent of new blossoms, I smiled. Not out of revenge or victory, but because I had finally become the version of myself that no one saw coming, not even me. The story didn't end when I died. It started when I came back.